You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 165. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action today. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. Today's episode is sponsored by the Legal Launch Lab. The Legal Launch Lab is launching right now, and it's putting the ease in legalese. Attorney-created contracts for your biz that offer protection without the legal mumbo jumbo. Go visit them at legallaunchlab.com, and all of their contact info will be in the show notes as well. So today I want to talk about why podcast interviews are not for you if all you want to do is sell. And I know that sounds weird. That's like the oxymoron. It's the opposite of why you think you should be doing podcasts. But hear me out on this. I am seeing podcast booking agencies over and over again preach about how they got into podcast interviews and launched their, quote, booking agency after having been on podcasts and interviewed themselves and then making $70,000 and $100,000 all from podcast interviews. And that sounds amazing. And it is possible. By all means, this is possible. But here's the big but. These people, first of all, are not actual podcast experts when it comes to interviews. They figured out that by getting on shows, they could sell their services. Now they're promoting this new product, this new service that they're going to do themselves. But in reality, they're not really doing it themselves at all. I'm sure they're white labeling it from somebody else. And the point is that, first of all, they're not experts. Second of all, it sounds to me so slimy, disgusting salesman to say that I only want to do podcast interviews because I want to sell something. We all know at the end of the day that every business owner, every author, everyone who has something to sell wants to sell more of it. That's really what business is about, is it not? To me, podcast interviews should be about the education, the expertise, the knowledge that you can share, the story that you're going to share with others that's going to inspire someone. It's going to give someone hope. It's going to allow them to learn something they didn't know before. These are what podcast interviews are about. It's about allowing listeners to get to know you so that they want to learn more from you. They want to work with you. Eventually, they will buy your product, your service, your book, whatever it is. But the goal should not be to go into it to make more money. I think that's slimy and gross. And if you want that goal, then go buy an ad. Go do some advertising. Go do some marketing. But don't do podcast interviews. I'm telling you right now that it's going to come across to the listeners that your only goal is to sell something. It will be very clear to whoever is listening that you're really not into it for them. It's just like the whole, he's just not that into you. Yeah, the person who's the guest is just not into the listener. If their whole intent is to sell something, then you're going to find out very quickly that that's what the whole intent is, because I promise you the interview is going to be all about that person. It's not going to be about what they can share with you, the listener, and with the host, as to what it is that's so special that they can bring to your life that you need. So let's talk about how you approach podcast interviews when you do want to sell something, but you don't want to come across as the sleazy salesman, the car guy. So instead of approaching a podcast interview with what you sell, including a book, approach it with what you can speak on. If you have a book, what was that journey like to get to writing the book? What was it like? If it's fiction, how did you do the research that was required to get your facts right? Because I know that in every book, there are going to be facts. You can't just make certain things up. If you might recall, when I had Kellie Wolf come on to talk about her book, Mount Hope, there was all kinds of things when it came to the coroner and the reports. And she went to go study with a coroner on factual evidence on what would have happened if this kind of a weapon was used. So there's research that's involved. If it's a nonfiction book, why did you choose this topic to write on? What was so important about it? And why are you the expert to write on it? What's your experience? When you have a business, you can always talk about your journey. I advise all of my clients that their story is a topic, first and foremost. So what did that look like for you? You didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to launch a business and this is what it's going to be and I'm going to lay the foundation. Poof, there you go. 6 figures all done. It's beautiful. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen to anyone. So what did happen to you? What does that look like from start to the middle to where you are today? What are your future goals? How did you figure out to do what it is that you do? Because again, just like you don't wake up one day and launch a business, you also don't wake up one day and go, I know how to hire an employee. I know how to do my taxes. I know how certain projects should be set up. I know which platforms I need, which softwares I need. You don't wake up and just know all of these things, most likely. There will be some cases where maybe in your past job, you knew how to do all of that, but that's part of your story too. So if you did wake up and you knew how to do all of these things and you were ready to start from the get-go, how did you figure that out? What were the experiences you had that led up to that moment of, I don't just know how to do this, but I'm going to do this for myself? These are topics. What was your childhood like that led to the adulthood that you now live? What made you decide on the career that you have or the business you launched? These are all things that make you unique that people want to hear. What was an experience that you had, whether it's traumatic, exciting, frightful, something that you would want to relive or never relive again, that you're willing to talk about and share so someone else can hear about it, so someone else can hear that they're not alone in going through the same thing. These are all reasons why you should be doing podcast interviews, not to sell something. Ultimately, you will sell whatever it is you're selling because you've allowed people to take a part of your life and you've shared it. You've been candid and honest and open, and that's what sells. That's what brings people to want more from you, to get to know you, to buy your product, to buy your service and work with you one-on-one, to buy the book and read that finished product that you put all of your love and effort and time into. These are what are going to sell whatever it is you're selling on a podcast interview. So my advice is don't go into it with the full intention of selling. You need to go into every podcast interview with the intent to share, to inspire, to educate, and to encourage others with what you know and what you've gone through. That's what's going to sell. I promise you this. And I love it because it's truly how sales should be done. I can't stand the normal, I'm putting in quotes, normal sales jargon, the sales ways of doing things, especially in the online world. Everyone needs a landing page. Make sure you have everything removed, off of your landing page so that nobody gets distracted and wants to click somewhere else. Make sure that, you're telling them all the reasons why, there's a whole template for how to do all of these things in sales. Whereas if you're just yourself and you're genuine and the ugly word authentic, but you're truly who you say you are and you show up in that way, people will buy from you. And that's what makes a good salesperson. It makes a great salesperson because you're just simply who you are. You don't have to change that for anybody. You don't have to change your website for somebody else to attract the right people. You don't have to have someone else writing your emails for you. If you're just writing from the heart and who you are, then that's what people will buy because they want to work with you. That's what podcast interviews are about. So don't go into a podcast interview with the intention to sell, because you won't sell anything. Go with the intention that's really pure, because the pureness is what's going to bring the richness at the end.